Hi, good day and welcome. Welcome to the Advanced Intellect channel. And today I'm joined by Hash Chowdhury from Cribl. We definitely want to make sure that we share with you some of the exciting stuff that we've got going on with Cribl. But most importantly, really give you some insights into some of the experience we're having with some of our customers. And I thought, you know what a better way to do that than put somebody on the spot, especially somebody who's focusing on the value of their solution and what they're doing in customers and what we're jointly doing in customers. But most importantly, just get a feel for what's happening with new technology out there and some new innovation and some of the exciting stuff going on. So again, welcome, Hash.
Thank you, Jason. Looking forward to the conversation.
Perfect, mate. Perfect. So again, I prepared a couple of questions for Hash, but I guarantee you, we no doubt will go down a rabbit hole on one or two of these. But really, what I wanted to do is, if you haven't seen Hash before, one of my colleagues, Alan Browning from our analytics division, effectively took some time with Hash to understand a little bit about observability and data in that space. And if you didn't catch that, please have a look at our channel on our website, and you'll see that conversation. But what I really wanted to do today was bring Hash into a conversation really around Cribl and specifically in the security space, and give you a snapshot with Hash and what we're seeing. So Hash, if you wouldn't mind, just give the viewers a little bit of a background of where you come from, what you've done, and a little bit about Cribl and how you ended up there.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. So I look after EMEA and international markets, for want of a better word, for Cribl. I've been in the industry north of 20 years, so a long time, probably a little bit longer than yourself. My prior role was heading up the emerging markets for Splunk, so I know the SIM space really well. And prior to that, I basically opened up Splunk in EMEA in 2008. So it's a very similar role to what I'm doing right now, is bringing a new product to market. It's disruptive, it's innovative, and really solving some pretty heavyweight customer problems.
And listen, I think one of the things that we know in this time, disruptive technologies are needed, right? With transformation taking place. And again, I know we're bantering around similar concepts that everybody's talking about, but I think the success that we're experiencing with you in such a short time has been mind-blowing, to say the least. And I'm hopefully hoping that when people view this couple of minutes with you and I, they understand. But I think, we've experienced probably 5 to 6 months together. We've closed some significant deals. And most importantly, we've made some really outrageous statements, right? And I think when you make an outrageous statement as a vendor or a service provider, customers first, they take a bit of a step back and they go, no, not possible. Everybody says they can save me money, right? But I think some of the statements that we've made and we've been quite boastful about when engaging with our CISO community in the security space has been reducing their security data by between 40 and 70%, right? And the craziest thing is we've been on the latter side, really focusing on the 70% as opposed to anything else, right? Reducing costs in licensing and hardware and infrastructure, operational efficiencies, and how we can get them to focus on less events and focus on the needle in the haystack, and then of course this greater time to value conversation, people migrating infrastructure, cloud, everything else. These are crazy statements, right? And in your experience in the short time you've been with Cribl, what do you put the success to? And are these statements as outrageous as they sound?
Look, without getting your hands on the platform, it is very, very hard to articulate some of these concepts. But people, specifically in the security domain, when you start talking about 40 to 70% reduction, people get very nervous, because today something could be noise, and tomorrow, once you've got rid of it, it's signal. We have a method of reducing the noise, but keeping full fidelity data on lower bandwidth storage for you to recover later on. A good example would be you're doing a forensic hunt, you've only got the reduced data, you can now go back and look at the full fidelity data in your S3 storage, for example, right? So you're getting kind of the best of both worlds. You're getting that alerts and really meaningful insights going to your SIM, and you're getting the full raw packets going into another cheaper platform, right? So that's on one side. I mean, that's just basic maths. Less going in means you're going to get metered less. On the one of the areas that we're seeing most, and we've had many conversations on this, one of the regions where I'm seeing most interest is actually migration. Migration from platform A to platform B is actually not a project. It's actually a program, right? If you're a large, complex legacy institution, there is a lot of moving parts and nobody really wants to touch it, right? Once Cribl goes in, we can literally migrate anything to anything, right? Through our, interactive user GUI. So that, and then the final piece is really around the people aspect, right? All of these platforms, Snowflake, Databricks, Mongo, they're all great platforms. They all do a very specific job, but the biggest headache is actually getting the data in. And the same thing goes with Splunk and Elastic, right? GDI or getting data in is one of the biggest headaches. And this is the area of pain that we're really, really addressing very nicely, actually. So on average, I've talked to advanced Splunk admins and advanced Elastic admins, and they're saying on average, it's 3 to 4 times quicker to get data in, just because we have pre-packaged content.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the things that we're seeing in some of our accounts where effectively they've got these SOC installations and they're spending their time on looking for the needle in the haystack. There's so much data they're trawling through. In fact, I think in a recent call you and I did, people are spending so much time trawling through the data to try and find this needle in the haystack. I guess the value proposition is, if you got less data, you can find it quicker, right? And also, I think in a couple of conversations we've had, almost between 15 and 20% of the budget that these guys are putting aside is for storage and for data processing. And, so again, other than, some of the key themes that we're preaching as a business, things like, if you can't see it, you can't stop it, right? These are some of the critical things that we're seeing happening in larger organizations. So what you're saying at the end of the day is, with less data, more focus, Cribl effectively helps a customer achieve better resilience, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to our CEO the other day, and he actually said something that's quite interesting. The growth of data is around 25% CAGR, right? Budgets aren't increasing at that rate, right?
Yeah,
1 or 2%, depending on inflation. It's kind of marginal points above inflation, right? But it's definitely not 25% CAGR, right? Over the space of 3 years, you're now talking real money, right? And unfortunately, your IT budget can't just be taken up by the status quo. So this is where the disruptive technologies come in. Yeah. Our aim is for you to continue to have 25 CAGR data growth, but bring it down to the most useful, insightful data points, right?
Well, and I think, again, part of, if you look at obviously some of the information we release and stuff we do on social media and also the conversations we have with clients, right, is the reality is even though cyber professionals and CISOs have the table at the board now, right, there's still a lot of organizations that are saying, listen, well, hold on, you've gone out and we've standardized, great example, we've standardized on E5 or E3 licenses, go and cut down your budgets, reduce your technology spend, in some cases exposing organizations, right? So I think the value proposition we're saying from a Cribl perspective is, regardless of the platform, of the technology, you can reduce your costs, you can still bring in some of this bleeding edge technology that may do a lot more than what Microsoft potentially says it can, but at the end of the day, you don't increase those budgets, but you do increase the resilience. And I think that's one of the key messages I hope some of the viewers get today is, when we look at Cribl and the value proposition we're bringing in the security space, never mind the other part of the business, which is all around data ingestion and everything else that they do from that perspective, but from a security perspective, I think in a couple of use cases, you've mentioned a couple of use cases, and maybe worth you just touching on 1 or 2 use cases we've had and we've been successful in locally. Hash, I mean, if you wouldn't mind, just maybe bring one or two of those to the front.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we deal with a lot of highly sensitive federal agencies, and we can't talk explicit names, but we can talk use cases, right? So one of the interesting use cases is a Fortune 100 company that basically has really looked at its data landscape and nuanced it for the best tool for the best job. For example, they will be sending reporting data to Elastic because it's rapid, quick on schema-based data. They will be sending forensic hunting data to Splunk. And then they'll be sending user behavioral analytics data to Exabeam, right?
Yeah.
But right now, or prior, what they were doing was sending the entire fire hose to everything. And it was actually, for this particular entity, we're talking hundreds of terabytes of data. It was killing their WAN, it was killing their network infrastructure. And it actually wasn't a sophisticated way of doing things, because there was PII, there was a bunch of sensitive information which they had to strip out.
Yeah.
Putting that ingestion layer in front really gives us the granular control to, number one, route to the right place, and number two, send the right data to the right place. Let us act as the policy and governance layer.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that explains.
No, absolutely. And I think in a couple of the engagements we've very much had that, that success where we can show the value very quickly. And I think also this comes back to probably in the last 6 months, again, a lot of the conversations we're having are opening doors, but also we're finding a little bit of a frustration, because again, why would somebody not want to take a really innovative technology like Cribl, reduce their data and the path to resilience, right? Why wouldn't they want to do that? And I think, let me just bring that question to you, right? What has been one of the frustration that you're seeing by dealing with end users? For some reason, we just don't get the concept, because I think also we've had some engagement where all of a sudden you're talking about reams and reams and thousands of events that come through multiple avenues in a network. And in a conversation, the customer just starts talking about end user or endpoint logs, right? So, and that's a frustrating conversation primarily because we're not just talking about endpoint logs, we're talking about data streams across your entire security landscape, right? So, what have been one or two of your frustrations? Because again, we get thrown these curveballs because maybe the concept isn't quite understood, or what have you seen?
I've seen customers that have been very pessimistic about the initial presentation, and then what I say is, if you have an hour, right, please go onto our sandbox. We give free training. Our CEO believes in free training, so we give free training. Just give me a call after you've done the sandbox training, right? And literally, they do give you a call like within an hour or so, and say, "Oh, now I get it." Right? It's sometimes very, and this is why the POCs are really, really important to us, because it's very hard to articulate some of the capabilities without seeing it in your use case in your environment, right? And the product is so simple, customers can literally do it for themselves. They can download the product. We have, I would say, best in class community, right? You go to our Slack community, is best in class. There's not just our guys on the call. The other day I was hearing a customer helped out another customer, right? Which is a beautiful thing, right?
Absolutely.
Our partners, you guys, I mean, one of our best partners in the region, you're active on there as well. So it's phenomenal. So the support structure, we surround the customer to make them successful. I'm a big believer in customer success. Ultimately, I want customers to talk to me again, right? So, customer success is really good for the ecosystem and really good for our innovation as well. So my biggest frustration is customers who think it's kind of like you open the session with too good to be true. They go and play with it, and then they realize, actually, I see and understand how you're doing things logically.
Yeah. I think, and I'll share one of my frustrations, is we were engaged with a very large organization pretty recently who experienced a major breach, right? And the service provider in the environment was advised to come and have a conversation with Advance, because effectively what had happened is their SIEM technology, effectively the EPS was sort of now absolutely bolting because some of its firewall technology was bleating.
Yeah,
right?
race conditions. Yeah.
I mean, great example. And the funniest thing is that the minute that there was a change in the environment, we were scheduled to have a meeting, and there was a change in the environment. One of our stakeholders who absolutely believed in what you're saying, effectively left the organization, mate. If I tell you that within 10 minutes of him walking out the door, that meeting was cancelled, because the question that came up straight away is, why would the service provider want to reduce EPS when it's their money spinner, right? You've seen this with IBM, with Splunk, with McAfee, with Exabeam. They live on EPS, and they live on data, and they live on storage. This is their business model. So when you come in the door, and this was one of my frustrations, we come in the door and we're driving a customer-centric, let's help you reduce your costs so you can go and spend money on the latest, greatest XDR play, or whatever you believe the next strategy in your business is. And unfortunately, you've got an outsourced service provider that doesn't have the same agenda. So that for me has been an interesting frustration to have. But I think, Hash, I have to thank you. In the engagements, the community thinking that you're thinking of putting forward is critical, because if we can give this not only to the technical teams who have a vested interest because they don't have to focus on it so much from an operational perspective, but also just help the executive understand that what we're saying is happening, right? And I think the one thing that you highlighted from a community perspective, the customers that we have created success cases in the South African territory and African territory, they're happy to talk to anybody, right? So, if you're watching this, please take us up on that. And then the other thing I would definitely encourage, and Hash, we need to make this available on our website, and I know we're in the process of doing that, is this free POV, so people can, effectively consume it. They can see it, they can experience it. At the end of the day, whether I'm looking at cyber resilience or my storage environment or my infrastructure or my migration strategy, I know that having something like Logstream from Cribl changes my strategy, especially from a commercial perspective and what I'm taking to the business. And I'll say the last thing is, one of the things that we talk about as a business is enabling customers from a cyber resilience. Business has to see cyber resilience as an enabler. And for us, Cribl is one of those very simple things that says, we'll help you reduce your cost, we'll help you increase your cyber resilience. But most importantly, the team that you have focusing on all this noise now becomes a lot more focused and ultimately drives a message.
Yeah, I mean, you've got some very highly valuable resources in security content engineers, and they're frankly doing very mundane, low value roles and jobs. What we really do is upskill them to focus on the more important things, on finding the tools and tactics, right? As opposed to, ultimately doing the plumbing, right? Let us do the plumbing, and you figure out how to do the insight and gathering and synthesis, right? That's kind of the way I see it, because it is about getting the best out of your platform. And I think you mentioned EPS. I don't have a problem with high EPS. What I have a problem with is noisy EPS, right? EPS that doesn't give you any value. You're just chewing up noise and not signal. If 50,000 EPS is signal, that's super valuable. If 42,000 is noise, then you have a problem. Right?
Agreed. Hash, listen, thank you. And again, I think you wanted to make it short and sweet, and I think we've touched on some pretty critical things. And from my perspective, thank you for the support that you've given this region. One of the things that I'll let the viewers know is that what we've seen with Cribl in the short time frame that we've been working with Hash and his colleagues and specialists is the value proposition is real. Those things that we stated in the beginning are what we're delivering to our customers. So Hash, thank you for the support. And
thank you for the support. I see Africa as one of our leading regions, amazingly smart talent and some pretty large problems, right? We're solving some serious issues with some global organizations. So looking forward to continuing.
Awesome, mate. But thank you. Really appreciate it, and no doubt we'll have you on here soon again.
Yep. Thanks, Jayson.